Welcome to my channel. I'm Scott, and in this video I am going to walk you through the process of valuing Imperial Oil stock by analyzing their financial statements and dissecting their financial ratios so we can determine if it's a buy or a sell. Imperial Oil is one of Canada's largest oil and gas companies. The company produces crude oil, diluted bitumen, and natural gas. They are also Canada's major petroleum refiner and a key petrochemical producer. It supplies the 2,000 Esso gas stations across Canada. Exxon owns over 70% of this company. Since Exxon owns over 50%, that means all of Imperial's financials are consolidated onto theirs. Imperial is headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and was founded in 1880. The ticker trades on the New York Stock Exchange, TSX, and Deutsche Börse. Let's get started with the model. This is a large cap company, 41 billion market cap. They're trading at $65 a share, and they have 637 million shares outstanding. Let's look at their financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future, and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video. And free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. They did have a lot of free cash flow in 2019, 2.8 billion, negative in 2020 due to low oil prices. Then it jumped way up to 4.4 billion in 2021. Now it's over 5 billion in the trailing 12 months. Net income is the profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. That's also negative in 2020, high in the trailing 12 months at 3.3 billion. Revenue is the sales for the company, and that doubled from 2020 to the trailing 12 months. This is the company's income statement. All their numbers are Canadian dollars. The top line is the revenue, the sales. Below that is their excise taxes. Then you have the cost of revenue. These are all the expenses directly related to generating the revenue. Revenue minus cost of revenue gives you your gross profit, and that was highest in the trailing 12 months at over 5 billion, negative in 2020. Below that is their operating expenses. These are all the expenses not directly related to generating the revenue. Gross profit minus operating expenses gives you your operating income, and that doubled from 2019 to the trailing 12 months. They spent 47 million of interest on their debt, which is half of 2019's number. Then you have other income and expenses. These are all the gains or losses not part of the company's core operations. Your pre-tax income, your taxes, and the bottom line of the income statement is your net income, which was negative in 2020 due to low revenue, but highest in the trailing 12 months at 3.3 billion. This is the company's statement of cash flows. The top line is operating cash flow. That's how much cash the company generates from its operational business. So they generated the most cash flow in the trailing 12 months, 6.3 billion. Then you have CapEx, investments in property, plant, and equipment. When they construct a drilling well, the cost to build out that well goes into CapEx. Then it's carried on the balance sheet and depreciated over its useful life. Operating cash flow minus CapEx gives you your free cash flow. And they have a lot of free cash flow in the trailing 12 months. So they paid a dividend. They also bought back a lot of stock. They bought back 2.7 billion of common stock. When a company buys back its own common stock, that decreases the shares outstanding. It makes your shares more valuable. Let's look at the capital structure. 22 billion of equity, 5 billion of debt. They're 81% equity, 19% debt. And their net debt is 2.2 billion. Their WACC on Finbox ranges from 8.8% up to 10%. I use the higher WACC of 10%, and that's a discount rate we're going to apply to the future cash flows. We estimated 4 years of future free cash flows. We also estimated a terminal value with all cash flows past year 4, that's 81 billion. We discounted those numbers back to today using the weighted average cost of capital. We get a value of the company of $75 billion. We divide that by 637 million shares. And we get a calculated stock price of 118. They're trading at 65, so they're trading at a 45% discount. It's a strong buy according to the model. Their revenue target for 2024 is 76 billion Canadian dollars. For 2023, it's 61 billion, and for 2022, it's 59 billion. I continue this trend into 2025, and I got 91 billion. That's how I got their future revenue estimates. They convert on average 9% of their revenue into free cash flow, so I multiplied their future revenue estimates by 9%. That's how I got their future free cash flows. 11 analysts priced the American stock, which is trading at $49. The average price target is 57, the lowest 48, the highest 71. This is where the stock has been trading the last 5 years. It was trading around $40 from mid-2017 to the beginning of 2020. Then it dropped a lot like every other stock in March 2020. It fell to about $12, $13. And then the stock price increased well past its pre-COVID levels. It broke through $70 at one point. It regressed a little bit, it's down to 63. This chart shows the price of Brent crude and this stock price the last 2 years. So they pretty much track each other. If you want to know how this company's stock price will do, just track the price of Brent crude. In the past 2 years, this stock price went up 195%, Brent crude went up 173%. They have 2.3 billion barrels of developed reserves and 386 million barrels of undeveloped reserves, totaling 2.7 billion barrels. Most of that is bitumen, 2.2 billion. Bitumen is mainly used for industrial purposes, like for instance to produce asphalt to make roads. Exxon has the most reserves at 19 billion barrels. Since Exxon owns more than 50% of this company, that means Imperial's reserves are included in Exxon's number. BP is second, then Total Energies in France, then Chevron, Shell, and Eni, they're in Italy. They've doubled their dividend since 2017. It was 16 cents, now it's 34 cents. That's a yield of 2.1%, which is 17% of their free cash flow, 27% of their net income. Their dividend yield was growing steadily from 2011 to 2019. Then when the stock crashed, the dividend yield shot up. It peaked at about 4.5%, and the forecast is for the yield to be 2.4% by 2024. The last time they did a stock split was 16 years ago in 2006, a 3-for-1. Before that was in 1998, also a 3-for-1. They have a beta of 2, so the stock is volatile. It moves 2 times the market. It's gone up 57% in the past 52 weeks, while the S&P is down 13%. The 52-week low is 31, the high is 73. And the stock is trading between its 50-day and 200-day moving average. 1.5 million shares are traded each day on this stock. Of the 637 million shares outstanding, 180 million are on float. 24% are held by institutions and 2% of the shares are shorted. If you invested $10,000 into this company 10 years ago, you'd have $15,000 today. That's a 46% return. The CEO's annual salary is 970,000 Canadian dollars, and their total compensation package is up to about 8.8 million. It was half that number a couple of years ago. In the past 12 months, there's been no insider buying, just a couple of sells. One person sold at 45, they would have been better off waiting. Another person sold at 67, which is pretty close to where they're trading at now. Exxon owns 73% of this company, 22% is held by institutions, 4.5% by the general public, and 2 basis points by insiders. Their employee count has been pretty steady the past few years. They currently have 5,400 workers. The biggest shareholder is Exxon at 73%, then First Eagle, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, Artisan Partners, GQG, Royal Bank of Canada, Vanguard, Bank of Montreal, and Connor Clark. Let's look at their financial ratios. They have a good PE of 13, that's stock price over earnings per share. The market median is 20, the market average is 30. They have a price to sales of 1.0, price to book of 1.8, and a price to free cash flow of 8.1. This means investors are paying $8 for $1 free cash flow. They have a pretty good return on invested capital, 14%. They can easily cover their interest payments, ROE of 15%, that's net income over equity. They can cover 120% of their current liabilities with their current assets. And their quick ratio is pretty close to 1. They do seem to be well capitalized. They generated over $5 billion of free cash flow in the trailing 12 months. They have over $2 billion of working capital. and they paid out $866 million of dividend payments. The best way to look at ratios is to compare them to companies in the same industry. There are 19 companies in the same industry as Imperial, and if Imperial has a number in red, they're worse than the average. If they have a number in blue, they're better than the average. They spend a lot less than average in CapEx. They have a really good debt to equity ratio. They pay a lower dividend than the average company. They generate less free cash flow than average. They rank 13th in market cap of the 19 companies. All the numbers in this chart are in US dollars. Their price to book, price to earnings, and price to free cash flow are a little worse than average. Price to sales at average. They generate less revenue than the average company. Their 5-year revenue growth rate is 8%, average is 18. And they have a good ROA and ROE. So to summarize, I have them trading at a 45% discount, and they seem to be performing a lot better than most oil and gas stocks because they're tracking the price of Brent crude. A lot of oil and gas stocks are lagging Brent crude. Since this company is a subset of Exxon, there's more volatility with this stock than Exxon. So you might see bigger gains with this stock or bigger losses when compared to Exxon. I rank their free cash flows 9 out of 10, their revenue 9 out of 10, and their ratio 6 out of 10. So let me know what you think. Give this video a like, subscribe, or comment below. Also, if you'd like to get a custom valuation or just support the channel, you can become a member by clicking on the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.